The beginning of Matthew chapter 27 is a pretty interesting passage. I'm going to read verses 3 through 10. This is referring to the suicide of Judas. When Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he repented and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. He said, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." But they said, "What is that to us? See it to yourself." Throwing down the pieces of silver in the temple, he departed, and he went and hanged himself. But the chief priests, taking the pieces of silver, said, "It is not lawful to put them into the treasury, since they are blood money." After conferring together, they used them to buy the potter's field as a place to bury foreigners. For this reason, that field has been called the field of blood to this day. Then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of the one on whom a price had been set, on whom some of the people of Israel had set a price, and they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord commanded me. The problem at the end of that passage is there's nothing of the sort to be found in the book of Jeremiah. It looks like the beginning of that quote actually comes from a passage in Zechariah chapter 11. I'm going to give verses 7 to 14 as context. Looks like it's specifically in verses 12 to 13. Here it is. "So, on behalf of the sheep dealers, I became the shepherd of the flock doomed to slaughter. I took 2 staffs, one I named Favor, the other I named Unity, and I tended the sheep. In 1 month I disposed of the 3 shepherds, for I had become impatient with them, and they also detested me. So I said, I will not be your shepherd. What is to die, let it die. What is to be destroyed, let it be destroyed, and let those who are left devour the flesh of one another. I took my staff Favor and broke it, annulling the covenant that I had made with all the peoples. So it was annulled on that day, and the sheep dealers who were watching me knew that it was the word of the Lord. I then said to them, if it seems right to you, give me my wages, but if not, keep them. So they weighed out as my wages 30 shekels of silver. Then the Lord said to me, throw it into the treasury, this lordly price at which I was valued by them. So I took the 30 shekels of silver and threw them into the treasury in the house of the Lord. Then I broke my second staff Unity, annulling the family ties between Judah and Israel." So you can kind of see where some of the words in the beginning of that quote came from, but looking at the context in this passage, Judas has absolutely nothing to do with what's going on here, and in fact no prophecies are being made here whatsoever. So I've done some searching for ways to explain the attribution to Jeremiah in Matthew 27, and the reasons that I've found, they don't really hold water, and I'm going to try to explain why. One of the explanations that I've read is that the quote attributed to Jeremiah was some kind of oral tradition which had never been written down. The problem with that explanation is there's another passage in Matthew which uses the same words regarding being spoken by Jeremiah, and it actually comes from the book of Jeremiah. It's in Matthew chapter 2, verses 17 to 18. This was regarding Herod's slaughtering of the firstborn. Then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled because they are no more. So there's already a precedent in the book of Matthew for the author to actually quote from Jeremiah when he's saying that something was spoken by Jeremiah. The other reason why that explanation fails is it's unfalsifiable. You know, you could say pretty much anything was spoken tradition which wasn't written down. If you don't have any evidence whatsoever to back that up. It's like, for example, if there was some current event happens And I want to say that it fulfilled a prophecy by Nostradamus, except it was a spoken prophecy by Nostradamus that had never been written down. Would you believe me? Another reason that I've seen given is that it was a prophecy which had been spoken by Jeremiah, but hadn't been written down until Zechariah wrote it down. And because of that, it's rightfully attributed to Jeremiah. The problems with that explanation being that the quote in Matthew doesn't match what's in Zechariah, and I'll give a similar analogy here. Now, let's say that I'm writing a book, and I use a quote from Bill Gates in my book, except that I attribute the quote to Albert Einstein. And the reason that I say that is because, it was something that Albert Einstein said, but it hadn't been written down until Bill Gates wrote it in his book. Do you think that I would be crediting my sources appropriately? The other explanation that I've seen is that this is a combination of the passage in Zechariah with kind of motifs from a few different passages in the book of Jeremiah, on specifically chapters 18, 19, and 32. I'm going to read a few excerpts from those chapters which kind of describe those motifs to show that they don't apply. Here's Jeremiah 18, verses 1 through 6. The word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord: Come, go down to the potter's house, and there I will let you hear my words. So I went down to the potter's house, and there he was working at his wheel. The vessel he was making of clay was spoiled in the potter's hand, and he reworked it into another vessel as seemed good to him. Then the word of the Lord came to me: Can I not do with you, O house of Israel, just as this potter has done, says the Lord? Just like the clay in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand, O house of Israel. No talk of buying a field to put dead bodies in. The next one is Jeremiah 19, verses 1 through 6, which says, Thus says the Lord, Go and buy a potter's earthenware jug. Take with you some of the elders of the people and some of the senior priests, and go out to the valley of the son of Hinnom, at the entry of the potsherd gate, and proclaim there the words that I tell you. You shall say, Hear the word of the Lord, O kings of Judah and inhabitants of Jerusalem. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel. I am going to bring such disaster upon this place that the ears of everyone who hears of it will tingle, because the people have forsaken me and have profaned this place by making offerings in it to other gods, whom neither they nor their ancestors nor the kings of Judah have known, and because they have filled this place with the blood of the innocent, and gone on building the high places of Baal to burn their children in the fire as burnt offerings to Baal, which I did not command or decree, nor did it enter my mind. Therefore the days are surely coming, says the Lord, when this place shall no more be called Topheth, or the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. Again, absolutely nothing to do with the context of Matthew chapter 27. Nothing. The next passage in Jeremiah 32, I'll read verses 6 through 9. Jeremiah said, The word of the Lord came to me. Hanamel, son of your uncle Shallum, is going to come to you and say, Buy my field that is at Anathoth, for the right of redemption by purchase is yours. Then my cousin Hanamel came to me in the court of the guard, in accordance with the word of the Lord, and said to me, Buy my field that is at Anathoth in the land of Benjamin, for the right of possession and redemption is yours. Buy it for yourself. Then I knew that this was the word of the Lord. And I bought the field at Anathoth from my cousin Hanamel, and weighed out the money to him, 17 shekels of silver. So we see the purchase of a field, although it's for 17 shekels of silver and not 30, but again, no reference to a field of blood, being used to store dead bodies. Absolutely nothing like that at all.